Welcome to the MIT 100K launch, everyone. We made it. So I'm Christina. I'm one of the managing directors of the MIT 100K this year, along my amazing co-managing directors, Supriya and Will. We're so excited to have you with us tonight, whether you're in person or tuning in from around the world.
If you're new to the 100K, it's a year-long journey that starts with pitch in December, moves into accelerate in March, and it all leads up to launch in May, where the finalists will compete for $100,000 in a grand prize. This year, 50 teams applied for launch. After a preliminary review by our network of external judges, 15 semifinalist teams were selected to pitch tonight for a spot in the finals in May. On May 12th in Kresge Auditorium. We hope you will all sign up on Eventbrite. There, around 8 to 10 finalists will compete for the grand prize. Tonight, each team will have 3 minutes to pitch their venture, followed by 3 minutes of live Q&A with our judges. And none of this would have been possible without our generous sponsors, Akamai and Morgan Thaler. Let's give it up for our sponsors. Woo!
And then before we dive in, I just want to introduce our amazing panel of judges. They are taking time out of their days to be here, so would love to introduce each of them. So first off, we have Zan Ali. Zan is a partner at 2048 Ventures with prior experience at Putnam and Fidelity in strategy, operations, and launching Fidelity Health. He holds an MBA from MIT Sloan and a BS from Babson and has invested in 20-plus startups through Dorm Room Fund. Next, we have Fraser Anderson. Fraser is a partner at Vestigo Ventures and a managing director at Link Ventures, investing in early-stage AI and fintech startups. Previously, he worked as a data scientist and a public markets investor. We also have Kristen Marchese. Kristen is the Chief Commercial Officer at Armoire, where she leads merchandising, marketing, and finance for the fashion tech startup. She brings a decade of consumer brand experience, including roles at DrinkWorks and Nomura, and holds degrees from MIT Sloan and Harvard. Next, we have Gino Korolev. Gino is the founder and CEO of Furtu, a platform helping healthcare providers engage patients across the digital and traditional channels. Before founding Furtu, Gino helped develop an at-home COVID-19 test at Detect and led product management at Onduo and Verily. He holds a degree in computer science from Northeastern and an MBA from MIT Sloan. And last but not least, I want to introduce Sam Thompson. He is a founding partner at Progress Ventures, specializing in venture financing, corporate development, and M&A, with past leadership of 11 acquisitions that scaled outside Interactive tenfold. He previously worked in design and user experience at Procter & Gamble and Pod Consulting, and serves as treasurer for The Conversation US. So if you could please join me in giving them a big round of applause.
Thank you to our judges for being here tonight. Now let's kick off with our first competitor tonight. Aptora will be pitching first. Aptora uses AI to simulate real work from a company's own code base, helping technical hiring teams evaluate candidates more accurately and onboard talent faster.
Today's tech hiring is broken. Having hired data scientists and ML engineers on my team, I have first-hand experience of how severe this problem is. Today, companies spend over $30,000 and 40-plus hours to hire a single entry-level tech engineer. And yet, 40% of those hires fail to meet expectations or leave within the first 6 months. A single bad tech hire could cost a mid-sized company over $50,000 in training, onboarding costs, and lost productivity. That's why we built Aptora. Aptora is the AI intelligence layer for technical talent. At Aptora, we help companies hire, onboard, and grow their technical talent. The problem is that today's assessments, are generic, subjective, without any feedback loop. That's why we built Aptora. Our product is based on Agent Computer Interface, ACI research from Princeton. Our core offering, Aptora Hire, is a 4-step process. First, we use agents to analyze internal company data to create role-specific success profiles. Next, we simulate real-world tasks in an environment that is familiar to candidates. Next, candidates solve these tasks in environments that they're familiar in. Finally, we have the evaluation engine, which compares success profiles against real-time performance, scoring not just on technical abilities, but also problem-solving and collaboration skills. The result is a much more comprehensive and accurate prediction of candidate to job fit. But Aptora isn't just a hiring tool. Our long-term goal is to build a complete data engine where companies can use the hiring data to accelerate and personalize onboarding and eventually support internal mobility and talent growth. Aptora addresses a critical gap in today's market, delivering the scalability of standardized tools with the contextual relevance of custom solutions. The result is direct savings in both cost and time. We already have our MVP built, and we are currently running 2 pilot programs with Series A startups. We're also building a community of hiring managers to evaluate model performance. The market opportunity is huge, over $8 billion of TAM. We're starting with mid-sized, high-growth tech companies that have critical hiring needs. In our first year, our goal is to reach 50 high-growth startups and focus on launching our Hire module with volume-based pricing. Our next goal, over the next 3 years, we are going to launch the Onboard and Grow modules and also scale through enterprise integration to drive ARR growth. We're a team of engineers with experience in both AI and talent management. We've lived this problem, and we're going to solve it at scale. Ultimately, great teams build great companies, and at Aptora, we're here to help you do that. Thank you.
So now we'll turn it over to the judges for questions.
What's the ACV that you expect to reach 1 million ARR, and like what's the number of companies that you need to contract?
Yeah, so we're going to start with a 3-tiered pricing model. We are going to start with like 25,000, and we are targeting like 50 customers. We are also going to add on like the Onboard and the Grow modules, but that's our starting ACV for the first year, and we are hoping to reach 1 million ARR at the end of the second year.
On the pricing side, have you validated with prospective customers about how they would like to pay? Is it fixed fee, percentage? How are you thinking about that?
So we're thinking of a volume-based pricing, and that's based on our current competitors, which is HackerRank and LeetCode. That's like the market standard. So essentially, the idea is that the more assessments you have each year, the lower you have to pay for each assessment, and that's how it gets better over time.
Is there a business that like inspired you to build this in terms of like, I want to build like, you know, X for Y, that sort of thing? Is there a model that sort of inspires the way you're going to market?
I think more than inspiring, it was the problems in the current system, which is like HackerRank. And also when I was a data scientist before this, I spent a lot of time curating these case interviews myself. And I realized that even with candidates, they have a better experience when they actually know what they're going to be doing, right? Like they want to make sure that they know what they're signing up for in the interview process.
Thanks, Tanvi. Just quick question. How do you customize the assessments based on specific capabilities and I guess skills required for each job? Like what does the onboarding process with customers look like?
Yeah, so in terms of like customizing, like I mentioned, we start with analyzing the internal company data and your performance review data. So once we know the top performers, say like you're a data scientist, right? And once we know what a top data scientist at your company looks like, what their like company workflow looks like, what their Jira tickets look like, what their Git repos look like, that helps us analyze like what is required from a data scientist, right? It's not just the theoretical requirements, but it is what is required in your specific tech context, and it's your specific tech stack. And in terms of onboarding process, are you referring to the onboarding that we assist or like the onboarding for clients with like the hiring?
For you guys, you guys with your customers?
Yeah, so the first step in the in the onboarding process is to provide like access to their data in like a secure, compliant manner, and to really understand that process. And we guide them through that process. But the first step is analyzing their internal data.
Thanks.
You mentioned HackerRank a number of times, and there's a large list of other competitors out there. But how do you? I didn't get a clear sense of your competitive differentiation. Who's to say that any of them couldn't apply some of the same overlay of AI on internal processes? How do you, in any way, move away from competitors in your differentiation from what would be a pretty standard process?
Our biggest differentiation is the data that we are going to collect, and it starts with analyzing the company data. These other players already have their brand image, and they already are focused on the volume of hiring. We're focused on the quality of hires as opposed to the quantity of hires, which is why it's not just providing the scalability, but it's also providing the quality of assessments and the depth of assessments.
All right, thank you, Aptora. All right, next up we have Flood Dynamics. Flood Dynamics provides real-time AI-powered flood risk modeling to help cities, insurers, and developers adapt smarter and protect communities from urban flooding.
Hi everyone, I'm Katya. I'm the co-founder of Flood Dynamics, and we're here to revolutionize the flood risk assessment world, predicting tomorrow's flood damages today. Flooding, and especially rain-driven flooding, is the most costliest natural hazard around the world. Here in the US, FEMA sees tens of billions of dollars in flood damages costs yearly, and mostly due to rain-driven flooding. Now, historically, our computational capabilities were leaving us rainfall blind without incorporating that into the assessments, and they were also causing us to have a very low resolution to our flood modeling and results. And due to that, insurances in cities are left blind to their flood risk, unable to price correctly, losing money, and unable to tap into existing FEMA and government funds. We can save cities and insurance billions in flood damages and costs yearly today. And we're doing this by uncovering historically undetectable damages that previously were not seen. If you're looking to the left, you see the City of Cambridge flood model. This is a FEMA type of flood model that has severe underdetection of flooding, of surface flooding. MIT spent $3 million in the recent few years on a model just like that, and the same for the City of Cambridge. Now, on the right side, you see Flood Dynamics technology and our flood model uncovering a lot more surface flooding. Our technology is based on that for the flood risk. We're able to validate this and deploy this in US cities. We're built at MIT and we're already licensed, and this was already validated in 2 pilot case studies. And now MIT is adopting our model, and we're about to sign a contract with them. This is an example of our unique flood technology, and we're able to do flood risk maps that no other company and no other government is able to show, just like pavements, drainage, and catch basins on top of building flooding. Our technology is scalable, actionable result, all in one dashboard, allowing you to do flood risk assessment, build mitigation and adaptation strategies, and have an early warning system all in one. We're already shown proven value of 1,000-time flood risk accuracy, uncovered $20 billion worth of flood damages, and a 6-time improvement in mitigation targeting in our 2 case studies. We're already saving millions, and we're in discussions with multiple flood insurances and cities across the US with a business model of a SaaS and API licensing model. We're tapping into $1 billion of serviceable obtainable market yearly from municipalities and corporate insurances that is existing today. We built this technology at MIT. We validated this and licensed it here. We have a vast connection with insurances and cities around the world. We're here to revolutionize the flood risk assessment world. Thank you.
We'll turn it to the judges for questions.
Thanks for that. I guess one quick question is, how often do these maps change, Or is this kind of a computation that's done a single point in time and then you charge access to that database over at each query?
So it's a twofold. There's the ones that don't change too often, yearly, every couple of years on the design and historic, and then the early warning for an upcoming rain event. And that is what we charge a lot on, because this is a rain that's happening tomorrow. You want to see how it's going to impact you today to be able to plan for it.
And what can cities and insurance companies do to actually plan for it?
So there's multiple ways to do. There's the short term of evicting people, making sure, so for insurance companies, for example, a 24-hour warning reduces by 50% the content damage, which is 50% of the damages for every flooding. And now US saw last year 25 events of over $1 billion of damages each for a rain event. So that's a lot. For a city, again, it's putting your teams, your operation and maintenance teams in the correct spot and saving lives, but also reducing damages. And you can also build mitigation strategies on dollar funds you already are spending today and making sure they're efficiently spent in the correct places.
I just wanted to verify, you're at 10 million of ARR today, or is that
that's by having 3 to 5 clients, depending.
Okay.
But yeah.
Are you? How much revenue do you have today? Sorry, are you pre-revenue or?
We're pre-revenue.
Okay.
We're about to sign a contract for this one is a few hundred
awesome.
$1,000, but not yet. And with another, like with MIT, and we're embarking on discussions. We're meeting the board of the World Bank and FM, which is a huge insurance company.
Yeah, if you would just talk through a little bit more, like kind of what the sales process is like. Yeah, just talk through it.
Yeah, so, okay. So we have our MVP, which is the existing flood risk, whether it's for a city or whether it's for insurance assets that are spread around the US. And then we have the midterm one, which is on the mitigation and adaptation strategies and the early warning. And we're doing this on a cycle. It takes us a month or two to incorporate data, produce first results, and we're having the dashboard, and they can access the results as they go with a yearly subscription.
Thanks.
On the customer side, have you gotten a sense of whether the insurance path or the municipality government path is going to be a better option? Because I imagine the sales team would look different, the probably package that you're putting together would look different.
Yeah, so they are somewhat compatible, especially if you're looking on the larger corporate insurance or the reinsurance. If you're looking at residential, they look at housing, while municipality would look at both housing and infrastructure systems. So it's somewhat different, but it's exactly the same product, and they all work together and all want to reduce those damages to save those dollars for both.
All right, thank you, Flood Dynamics. All right, next up we have Guardian. Guardian simplifies commodity price hedging for SMBs through an easy-to-use platform that bundles exchange-traded derivatives into transparent protection plans. And Guardian was actually our second place winner for Accelerate, so let's give it up to them.
Hello. Mr. Roberts is a fuel distributor in Dallas, Texas. He's been in the business for quite a bit of time. He's seen a thing or two. But when his diesel costs jumped 25% due to unexpected volatility and uncertainty in energy markets, he found himself at an intersection of two tough options: either high prices and lose customers, or absorb the costs and shrink his own margins. And when he turned to his bank for commodity hedging solutions, he found them to be too complex and too expensive. Right now, the process takes about 14 steps for a traditional bank to provide a commodity hedging solution. I'm not going to bore you with them right now, but at the end of the day, it results in something that takes weeks, tons of paperwork, and is too expensive and inflexible for small business needs. Mr. Roberts isn't alone. In the US, there are 8 million small businesses across manufacturing, construction, and logistics that face a collective $1 trillion worth of commodity exposure. Moreover, small businesses can see their total cost footprint consist of almost 60% raw materials, leaving them particularly vulnerable to pricing swings. Volatility is a massive risk for them, but it doesn't have to be. Meet Guardian, the platform that helps small businesses lock in price stability by aggregating their collective demand and bundling products for their needs. We meet the SMB where they are at by really building in flexibility for our products to target the specific quantity that they want covered, as well as the specific duration of that coverage. Moreover, this is done in an affordable and transparent way where customers can see exactly what their premiums are going towards. And lastly, it's an intuitive, easy to understand platform that has all of these things in one roof.
This is our secret sauce. First, we pull live derivative contract. Second, we aggregate the customer fractional order and match them to the corresponding contract. Once a contract is fulfilled, we route it to the broker for execution. Then our customer can close the position and receive the payout as needed. We build the algorithm, we back-tested it, and we're ready to deploy it to the market. We package our engine into a simple hedging solution. Customer only need to choose the commodity, the quantity, and the coverage period. We handle the rest. Current solutions today are designed for big corporations, which require high minimum volume to start with. Guardian breaks this barrier. We are the first fractional hedging platform for SMB, unlocking a new market of 16 million underserved customers. Our first target market is 200 billion of fuel exposure. We charge 3% premium on the contract, resulting in 300K estimated revenue for the first year. Our model is highly scalable, high margin, and we're the first mover. We're actively building an MVP right now, and with extra funding from 100K, we plan to do a paid pilot within 5 months before a full commercial rollout early next year. We know this market, have launched and scaled business B2B fintech product. Sean has deep experience in commodity sales and now brings technical rigor from building trading algorithm at a quant hedge fund. We know the challenge and we know how to win. Remember, price fluctuate, Guardian protect. Thank you. And we'll move for questions.
How do you manage major market moves and the risk that either you absorb as counterparty, or how do you protect against that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to start, we will position ourselves not to bear inventory risk. So right now, let's say if a small business wants to buy 1.4 contracts, we will try to aggregate that remaining 0.6 throughout the day from other small businesses. And if we can't fulfill the remainder of that to have a nice round contract, we'll just not confirm it. So we don't bear that risk on our books, and we're doing that to basically to minimize our inventory risk, to your point.
How should I think about like the cash out on options premium for an SMB, like a typical SMB? I'm trying to like understand what the sale would look like.
Yeah, so for us right now, the primary, I would say cash flow in from a small business would be just that premium on, let's say, a diesel contract or a micro WTI contract. So we would essentially charge them the market premium in addition to the 3% markup that we would have by providing liquidity to small businesses, or the option to have the seat at the table. And that's what they would ultimately pay, is the premium plus our premium on top of that, or the POP is what we call.
Sorry, just make it like,
yeah.
What do you think your kind of average monthly premium cost is going to be to the SMB? It's probably going to feel like a new insurance product to them that they didn't have to pay for before. I just want to understand like a sense of scale.
Yeah, so it just depends on the type of coverage. So we have, if you can go back to the screenshot. Yeah, we're offering it as a base case, a basic package, premium package, and then like a mid-tier package there. And that's going to depend on, do you want, exactly right here, do you want to have, let's say, protection beyond $90 per barrel, 92.5, or 95? And that will essentially feed out a percentage of that contract.
Thanks. More coverage, more price, basically.
Yeah.
Of the, I think you said 16 million small, medium businesses, what percentage of those do you think are thinking about hedging, to trying to get a sense of, is this a problem that you're going to have to explain to these businesses, or do they already know that it's a problem?
Right. So we have talked to more than 10 customers in this space across various industries, including logistics, manufacturing, and construction. I have experience in cost management in construction, so I know the pain, and I know they're looking for the solution to hedge, but they don't have access to those solutions right now. And especially with the macro environment right now, that becomes the top of mind of them. So now becoming like survival mode instead of expanding. So it's like from our conversation with a potential customer, we know this is a pain and there's a demand for this.
And adding on that, there's a lot of risk-off mindset that we see with small businesses today, right? They're thinking about how do I protect my margin, defend against tariffs or potentially, right? And that's going to have subsequent impacts on their commodity exposure they have.
All right, thank you, Guardian. All right, next up we have Apollo Atomics. They're commercializing compact, high-efficiency steam generators for nuclear applications. And they are our third place winner for Accelerate, our last event. Let's give it up to them.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Asil. We're Team Apollo Atomics, and we're designing ultra-compact nuclear reactors using compact heat exchangers that we developed here at MIT for over 10 years. The world is hungry for energy and electricity, and its consumption is expected to grow to more than double in the next 25 years. This is driven by AI, data centers, electrification of transportation industries, as well as economic growth. And on top of that, we need to replace existing assets, which are dominated by fossil fuel today. So when you go and talk to plant owners, they will tell you there are three main requirements they want to see in new generation assets. They need energy to be clean, firm, and reliable. And nuclear happens to be the best option that fits these three main requirements, and that's acknowledged by a commitment from public and private entities to triple nuclear in the next 25 years. So you have countries, large industrials, as well as big tech. This is an 800 gigawatt electric market around the globe, which corresponds to an annual total addressable market of $400 billion annually. The challenge with nuclear is the construction. If you look around the globe, it takes about 10 years to build a nuclear power plant. Compared to a natural gas plant, it takes 2 years. And when you look at the cost, 70% of the cost is actually the cost of construction. And that's not the case for other generation assets. And so that's what we want to tackle. So what you see here on the left is a traditional nuclear plant and traditional nuclear hardware. Inside, you have large components that you can't assemble before, so you have to bring them to the site. So you do the assembly on the site and the testing on the site. What you see in the middle is the largest component. It is a heat exchanger. It is about 20 meters in height, which is double the height of this building, and 6 meters in diameter. With our innovative heat exchangers that we tested at MIT for over 10 years, as I said, we're able to shrink the size of this volume into a size that fits in my bag right there, that you can see it later. And now we can put all the nuclear hardware in one single container that can be manufactured, tested, and assembled in a factory in a high productivity environment, and then send it to the site only for installation. And we do this, and this is important, without any power reduction. So you have 300 megawatt on the left and 300 megawatt on the right. This is our deployment approach. Starting this September, we're actually upscaling the existing loop that we have at MIT to produce the data to design our commercial heat exchanger. At that point, we can sell the heat exchanger, and we're also developing a non-nuclear test facility that will allow us to build a low-power demonstrator for 50 megawatt. At that level of power, we can sell our reactors to small and niche grid applications, like data centers and behind-the-meter applications. However, if you want to compete for the large grid, you need to upscale to 300 megawatt. And that's what we're doing with our full power demonstrator. At the bottom, I put the different funding timelines. And then this is our team. We're a group of scientists, PhDs, and engineers, and we're excited to start this venture.
All right, sorry, we're at time. Thank you. We'll turn it to the judges for questions.
I didn't catch. What's the time to online for a reactor that you put together?
Yeah, so we have different products. We can sell our compact heat exchanger to other nuclear power plant developers. So that is, we're aiming for 2027, 2028. Yeah, when you apply that to existing technology, it's not game changing. When you apply it, for example, to fusion or other nuclear developers, it's not game changing. It is game changing in we apply to pressurized water reactors, and that's what we're developing as a reactor. But we still have a market outside of that. So we're talking 2030 for the 50 megawatt version, and then 2033 for the 300 megawatt version.
For the kind of the target goal, the 50 megawatt version, how are you de-risking that with your seed round?
With the seed round in particular, so the goal of the 50 megawatt in and of itself is as part of the licensing. So to work towards that, our seed round, essentially our entire investment stages are linked to the stages of licensing with the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, where essentially we grow in investment as we unlock these like different steps. So our seed round is entirely focused at the pre-approval stage, which is obviously the first step in licensing. But despite that, if you look around at the SMR space, if we get our pre-approval, we are part of only 2 companies that have it. So our seed round is essentially pre-approval, which serves the entire fleet, but obviously also the 50 megawatt. So. Maybe I missed this, and apologies if so, but what is the core kind of IP here versus I know other folks are working on this, just thinking about kind of differentiation?
The core IP, like Asil mentioned, it's what's in this bag, and it's unfortunately proprietary and it can't be shown to the whole room, but we can show you afterwards. Essentially, it's the heat exchanger, and that's what has been worked on for the last 15 years here at MIT, making that incredibly small. And that's kind of a really crux point, where if you make the heat exchanger itself smaller, that's the most important thing within the reactor to make smaller, and it allows the whole rest of the device to be contained in a package that can be shipped on a truck, which means it can be manufactured in a factory. So it's kind of this chain of value where we found the most critical point that makes everything else cascade into being much more unique than anything else in the market.
All right, thank you, Apollo Atomics. Next up, we have Absentia Labs. Absentia replaces traditional animal testing with AI simulations that accurately predict drug safety and toxicity in preclinical drug development.
This is not a group of rabbits just getting around smoking cigarette on a Friday night. This is actually an animal testing that was done in 1958 and showed that smoking does not cause cancer. The reality is that 95% of animal testing do not really translate to humans. 90% of the animal testing that we do in the lab are not really reproducible, and we are killing more than 200 million animals every year only in the US to get this result. Because of that, FDA said we need better methods, and that's what we're building. And besides that, for each one drug, we're spending around 600 million in R&D costs for discovery and preclinical testing. And that takes around 5 to 6 years to optimize. And this is very costly and time consuming. What we are building, we are bringing AI simulations to biology. We are creating simulations in silico that are 100 times more faster than what you do in the lab, 50 times cheaper, and we can do a bunch of things like target discovery and testing that has been traditionally really hard to do. And we also bring scoring of translation. They can tell the researchers if this drug that they're testing on silico is actually going to have impact on human or not. What we are doing right now, we're selling our AI simulations to a lot of biotech and biopharma companies. And we couple our algorithm to experimental data, so we can generate new data, and also we can create more resolution on the data that already exists with synthetic data. And if companies are not interested, we actually sell the results of the testing to them. So they can give us the compound, a huge list of compounds, and we can actually shortlist it to the ones that are more promising so they can move on with those. Based on our estimation, we can replace 60% of mice studies. And that includes toxicity and safety testing. That's what most of the mice studies being done for. Genetic engineering and pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics that are traditionally also being done. And we work with CROs that are doing most of the animal testing, big pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies, and these are the conversations that we're having right now with them. Our goal is clear, is just not animal testing. We are seeing that this simulation is going to get more complex, and we're working on it. We're creating non-human primate also simulations in silico, and our goal is to actually bring human biology in silico. So we can simulate if a drug is going to toxic or effective before even trying it on human. This is something that we have experienced everywhere in engineering, and we are bringing that to biology to make it more effective and efficient. This is our team. I have experience in working in biopharma before as a product manager. And Roel has a lot of experience in AI, and he worked in Speechify and X before, and he's bringing a lot of experience from AI. Absentia is a drug discovery intelligence, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
What are the accuracy rates of the models right now, and how does that compare to what your prospective customers are looking for them to be?
Yeah, for a lot of cases, actually pretty good. You know, we have for toxicity testing, we have more than 80% accuracy. Those are the ones that are really actually easy to do. We are working with CROs to, you know, just replace a lot of those toxicities. But for a lot of things like gene engineering, because we have, you know, mismatch between human and animal, we have like harder time to predict. But we're getting more data, and as we're working with our partners, we get more data to make these simulations more accurate over time. And that's the premise of simulations. You know, you can get more data and you can get feedback and actually make them more accurate.
Does the FDA need to approve this as a valid method before it can be sold and applied?
Well, FDA mostly works with, you know, is concerned with human interventions. And when it comes to animals, they actually prefer to, you know, replace animals. Just 2 weeks ago, they said that we don't need more animal testings for antibody discovery and for testing. So they are looking for alternative methods, and for animals, actually, they are also trying to replace that. For this case, they are not. They don't have any regulations, and we are working mostly for pharma companies to give them preclinical intelligence, not anything about the clinical setting.
I applaud and appreciate what you're doing to save animals, but just out of curiosity, rather than understanding toxicity, are you also looking, say, at more stage 4 applications where you could actually model out what would be additional uses for drugs that are already in market?
Yeah, so, you know, animal testing for us is a very interesting case because, first of all, there is need for it and a lot of people are willing to pay for it. But also, if you want to learn biology across, you know, different species, if we want to learn something about human biology, we have to learn a lot of animals. You know, that's how we have been learning about, for example, we learned a lot about human cardiovascular from just zebrafish. So we are training a lot of these models in silico, and the goal is that as we are getting, you know, more sophisticated in our modeling, we can actually get to a place that we can replicate human biology more accurately. You know, there are some issues with that, but that's our long-term vision.
Well, one quick one. Are you going to provide this as a service, kind of like project by project to pharma, or kind of a software platform that they consume and it's all you can eat?
Yeah, so we are right now we're just talking with them as partnership to actually deploy our model and help them with, you know, just optimizing their animal testing, and that's mostly with CROs. So that's where we see like the immediate value. But with pharma companies, we sell them as a token. You know, each token that they use for simulations, they get charged based on that, and that's just part of the software. Whereas the simulations are being run in our platform.
Thank you so much, Absentia. All right, next up is Upcycle X. Upcycle X transforms plastic waste into high-value chemicals using a low-energy, zero-emissions electrocatalytic process. Give it up.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Medina, co-founder of Upcycle X. Here, we're building an electrocatalytic platform in order to turn plastics into valuable chemicals, making recycling not only possible, but also profitable. We're currently living through a global plastic crisis. Over 400 million tons of plastics are developed every year, but only 9% of those plastics are actually recycled. Most of those plastics actually end up in either landfills, incineration, or marine pollution. Simply, today, recycling is broken. What we actually end up seeing instead of true recycling is downcycling. Worse than that, recycled plastics are actually more expensive than first-time plastics. Therefore, there's no real incentive for any of these industries to be using recycled plastics. That's where Upcycle X comes in. With our electrocatalytic upcycling process, we're using electricity to break down waste plastic. For our first reaction model, we're using PET plastic in order to transform it into KDF, a premium animal feed additive, and TPA, a monomer for PET production. Better than that, we're able to achieve a 10 to 25% lower price than the market average, with sustainability badges attached to them. With the massive markets in both KDF and TPA, we're expecting an initial TAM of about $1 billion. However, with building out this platform, we expect to have an $80 billion opportunity in transforming all plastic waste streams into sustainable, high-value products. The core of this is a patented electric catalyst, which operates under ambient conditions and achieves about a 90% electrical efficiency. It's scalable, it's modular, and it's ideal for decentralized deployment. Our first beachhead market that we're focusing on is on the KDF side, and that's EU swine and poultry animal feed producers. Our follow-up market for the TPA side is textile and plastics manufacturers here in the US. Now, our revenue streams consist of chemical sales, technological licensing, and turnkey solutions. However, we're focusing on chemical sales right now, and we're currently in discussions with Burnett & Sons and Nutrico. We have a high cross-functional team here at UpCycleX. So Dr. Lee brings years of experience and his PhD in chemical engineering and the technology. I myself am a Harvard MBA candidate and ex-production engineer in plastics with Dow Chemical. And in addition to our first engineer, we also have Pietro Satriano, one of our business advisors, former CEO of US Foods. With this team, we know and we're confident that we're going to be able to start transforming waste into value. So thank you, and we're excited to build this vision out.
The EU contract, or at least the movement to the EU market, is based on a single customer that you guys have been in conversations with? Is that the...
Yeah, well, so we've had additional conversations with individuals like in the EU, specifically more in academia side, that have kind of demonstrated the interest there. I mean, the sort of justification or the sort of thought process of going into both of those markets are because those users already use these commodity chemicals. And at the end of the day, we're a manufacturing company, it's a commodity chemical play. So, and we understand that there are frictions to get into some of these markets, especially internationally. But through additional conversations, we know that we're going to be able to understand them better.
And it's a cost-efficient way to produce the same chemical that they're buying from others?
Yes, sir.
Is it a higher margin for you than
yes,
the other producers?
So I mean, so that 10 to 25% lower price is factoring in the sort of margin, the gross margin we expect at scale.
Okay.
One of the things you mentioned was cost, which seems like a very important variable, but I assume there are others like throughput and like the amount of the end product that these customers want their hands on. So just walk us through kind of like the big numbers here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in terms of the sort of production scale that we're expecting, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Currently, I mean, we have a few, we're still in the process, of course, of de-risking from a technical side. But our expected capacity, based on our bench scale, our pilot scale, and then our medium-sized scale, is looking at about, I believe it's 10 kilograms per day on the bench scale, 3 tons per day on the pilot scale, and then about, I think it's 15, 20, I can't remember off the top of my head, at the medium scale. And the whole anticipation there is to make sure that we have medium to long-sized contracts with these manufacturers and with these customers, in the process of doing that. So I guess in terms of the production side, that's how that would work. I guess you were asking also on a sort of spec, like purity side as well, right? Like,
answer that too.
Yeah, well, well, of course, it's still a work in progress. But yeah, no, I mean, in terms of like how they kind of go to market and how they work with these customers. So and that kind of lends to the sort of experience I've had in my manufacturing days in Dow. We would basically go through trials with these customers, make sure that we can go through, meet their specs, and more importantly, meet the amount of quantities that they need, because that is one thing that we found is a very key thing for them, is that they wouldn't want someone that could just make 1 pound for them. They want to make sure that someone who could consistently make consistent product for them.
How much input material do you need to produce 3 tons of output?
For 3 tons of output of which specific product, of the KDF or the TPA? Yeah, I believe the yield is something on the effect of, so with 1,000, I believe the yield was with 1 ton of PET, we're able to create about 0.2 of TPA and then 0.8 of the KDF. And then that factors in, of course, the KEOH. So in our process, the way it works, we use hydrolysis to then melt the plastic and then create a liquid form. So even factoring the KOH side, I mean, we mostly stick on the PET measuring side, but it's about 0.2 in terms of yield for TPA.
And do you have a plan for getting that steady supply of input?
Yes. So I mean, on the plastic side, that is one risk that we're making sure to de-risk. Is a sort of idea that plastics declaimers that they're selling to us realize that they're creating value for us, so they raise the prices, right? So that's definitely where we're trying to diversify and look into, again, declaimers as opposed to MRFs, and then from the KOH side, making sure that we source reliably from different. So that's definitely something that we're looking into, kind of in the sort of longer term stages.
Great. Thank you so much, Upcycle. Next up is Haven. Haven is an AI-powered financial planning platform that helps families manage lifelong special needs care, unlocking access to a $72 billion underserved market. Thank you.
Shivani is diagnosed with an intellectual disability. That means she's physically 36, but mentally 5 and will always be 5. Shivani will never be able to work, will always need lifelong support for the duration of her life. As my family plans for her future, we're dealing with the following questions. How much money do we need? What benefits is she even eligible for? And how can we set up her private assets so she can even retain those public benefits? And how do we manage the funding and the paperwork over time? Today, it's costing us over $15,000 just to set up the financial and legal protections that Shivani needs, and it will cost us over 200 hours a year in manual coordination time across experts, tracking funds, and staying compliant. We're not alone. This problem affects about 20 million families around the country, with 69% not knowing how to manage long-term care financing and over 50% unable to find a professional who knows what to do. And today, with public benefits more uncertain than ever, it makes private planning even more critical. That's why we're building Haven, the AI-powered financial platform for families navigating lifelong special needs care. We will begin, 1, by forecasting for families their long-term financial needs and building a plan. 2nd, we'll set up their private assets and manage them over time. And finally, help both orchestrate paperwork and manage compliance. We will begin by offering families unified experts across finance, legal, and benefits, and power them by baseline automation for faster and better setup. With each family that we serve, it will sharpen our AI with the expertise, increase data on family financial patterns, and government data to enable us to eventually build the AI-powered personalized financial guidance and management system with humans in the loop. And Haven is uniquely positioned as the only unified and personalized player in a sea of fragmented and generic human experts as well as tech solutions. We will capture value by serving over 9 million families who have private assets, through both one-time fees and recurring fees for structuring and management over time. And we'll also build tools for over 500,000 advisors in the finance and legal space to help them support the families that they serve, unlocking a $79 billion TAM that also includes taking a % of assets under management. Today, we've built an AI tool to power forecasting and planning work and are already serving 3 families with forecasting and planning today. We've also partnered with 4 disability nonprofits for distribution, which will be the foundation of our early go-to-market strategy, with which we hope to serve 100 families by the end of this year. And we're the right team to do so. My name is Tej Mehta. I'm the CEO. I'm Shivani's brother. I'm an MIT Sloan MBA student and was a founding member of Multiverse US and helped grow it from 0 to 20 million in revenue. I'm joined by Gabe, an AI researcher across MIT, UC Berkeley, and Harvard, and the co-founder of Metro Mobility. And we have a team of incredible advisors across the disability, healthcare, finance, and tech ecosystems who will enable us to turn Haven into a platform that can change the lives of special needs care today. Thank you.
Can you talk about, it sounds like there are 2 go-to-market channels. Like, which one are you prioritizing to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're focusing on families for sure. That's where we see the most pain today and the most value that needs to be created. Across the let's say, 20 million families, we estimate about half are ones who actually have assets need planning, but 5% actually have enough wealth to be served by financial planners and estate lawyers and are okay. We want to target the other 9 million families who have substantial assets, but are not at the level to actually get to the wealth planners.
How are you planning to differentiate and make it extra valuable so that the off-the-shelf, more generic AI solutions aren't going to do a good enough job?
Yeah, so maybe this is the best way of looking at it. There are products that, off-the-shelf products are not, in our view, going deep enough. They're giving templates, they're giving certain solutions to help families get going, but it's not enough to actually help them manage over time. And the pain that we've heard from families is it's really painful to figure out what to do because no one knows what to do, but it's even more painful to actually do it over time, whether it's receipts, whether it's figuring out whether this fund and this money will make us unable to get our SSI benefit. And so it's the systems as they come together that can track across private and public to get going. And that's what we're dealing with as a family right now.
Do you consider targeting employers as a way to get to the families instead of just going directly?
Absolutely. So we believe that there will be future go-to-market motions, one that include employers as a benefit that they can offer. But we also know how crowded the employee benefits market is, so we will get there, I think, eventually. And then second, another distribution channel is banks. So a study by Deloitte that came out a couple of years ago was focused on the fact that there's a large population of disabled individuals that banks are not unable to serve. So we believe that there's going to be value in actually partnering with the banks to bring products to their customers that will help them drive retention, et cetera.
Thank you so much, Haven.
Cool. Thank you.
Feel free to file in. There's some seats in the middle here, folks that are standing. Up next is Umbo. Umbo is developing a fully implantable microphone to enable invisible, effortless hearing for cochlear implant users, targeting a $1.6 billion market.
Two images. A woman wearing glasses and a woman wearing a cochlear implant. Both are assistive devices, but how we perceive them is completely different. Glasses are seen as smart and stylish. Cochlear implants, or CIs, on the other hand, signal disability. Perception matters because there are 60 million people who have severe or greater hearing loss who could benefit from getting CIs, but they hesitate because of how they make them feel. Take Tom. Tom started losing his hearing in 2016. He tried hearing aids, but his hearing degraded to a point where his ENT recommended CIs. But Tom held off for 2 full years because he was worried about how he'd look. He's finally getting his CIs this year, but his hearing journey isn't over. His external device might fall off, get lost, or break. He'll need accessories to hear in water, and he may feel stigmatized or self-conscious. These daily frictions not only affect how Tom hears, but how he lives. That's why we created Umbo Mic. Umbo Mic is an implantable microphone placed in the middle ear. It's the final missing piece for CI companies to bring fully implantable CIs to market. And for users like Tom, that means no visible hardware, so no daily maintenance, no stigma, and 24/7 hearing in sleep and in water. Umbo's customers have 2 main advantages: placement and performance. Umbo Mic is placed at the umbo, minimizing body noise like chewing and breathing, and it filters sound naturally using the ear's anatomy. It uses patented sensor technology to capture, to sense motion of the eardrum in nanometers, detecting delicate sounds without amplifying noise. Cochlear implants are Class 3 medical devices, which means FDA submission and clinical trials are required. That's why we're partnering with CI companies. They lead the regulatory path, we supply the critical component as a B2B supplier, and together we bring Umbo Mic to users faster. This partnership allows us to access active and professional adults in North America and Europe, unlocking a $94 million opportunity. With adoption expanding to adolescents and starting to scale like the hearing aid market, that grows to $300 million. And with global adoption, this becomes a $1.6 billion opportunity. We have a working prototype that's been tested in human cadaveric ears, and you can hear real recordings through that QR code. We're part of MIT Sandbox and ADS Squared, where you refined our business strategy and won first place at MIT 100K Accelerate. We're in early conversations with 2 CI companies with the goal to secure a formal partnership while maturing our MVP by end of the year. I'm Cuban, the CEO, with a background in mechanical engineering, as well as consumer electronics at Microsoft and Meta. John is our CTO, and he's been driving the core research behind Umbo Mic at MIT. And behind us is a wider research team from Mass Pioneer, Harvard Med, and Columbia. The science is ready, the need is clear. With Umbo, people can hear freely and live fully.
Can you speak a little bit to the other options that you listed on the page? Some that seem like they're quite close to what you're offering, but what's the real differentiation, or how are you?
That's a great question. I was actually hoping you would ask. So the established companies have sort of put all of their eggs in one basket, which is the subdermal microphone. So that's a microphone like in your phone that they're putting just underneath the skin, and it's really because it's lower risk. As a startup, we are sort of uniquely positioned to take a higher risk, higher reward, and we've done all of our push-ups in the lab, and so we have this ability to use a sensor that's designed for your ear. I think you probably already know this intuitively, but if you take a lavalier microphone, stick it underneath your armpit, it doesn't sound very good, and so it's really about the audio signal that we get by sensing at the eardrum.
Do you have the data on how the hearing aid market, the different types of hearing aids are consumed or purchased? Like, I'm assuming that external is probably like 90%, 90+%.
Yeah, that's a good question, because actually those two markets, if you're not familiar with the space, are actually pretty different. And especially in the hearing market, things have been changing a lot since AirPods were approved. Cochlear implants are, they're a elective surgery, and they're only covered for unilateral for the first side. And so those two segments are usually different. But what's happening is that more and more people are being approved for cochlear implants as the device and technology is maturing.
Actually, maybe a correction. They're actually covered for bilateral, so both sides. So eligibility and coverage is expanding, actually. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's moving.
Your go-to-market is through the existing kind of companies in the space, the CI companies you referenced. I assume, presumably, if this works, one of them is going to immediately want exclusivity. Mm-hmm. What do you do?
That's definitely a reality that could happen in the future. We're actually in the process of talking to all of them right now. We want to know all of them so that we understand who's the best fit and who's the right partner for us to work with in the future. And until we get to a point where we fully understand their needs, we want to explore all options. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Umbo. Next up, we have CoFlow. CoFlow has developed a low-cost injection device that enables biologic drug delivery over 10 times faster, unlocking broader access to life-saving therapies in a $500 billion market. Let's give it up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simon Rufer, and I'm the CEO of CoFlow Medical, where we're democratizing biologic drug delivery. For patients living with chronic diseases like cancer and autoimmune diseases, every hour of their life matters. These days, we have advanced therapies known as biologic drugs, which are capable of treating these challenging diseases. However, their administration is unacceptably time-consuming, and it dictates how they can live their lives. Moreover, administration requires a hospital setting, meaning that access to biologics is all but impossible in low-access areas. Today, biologic drugs are administered via intravenous infusion, which takes 1 to 8 hours of time in a hospital setting, resulting in extremely high costs. Subcutaneous injection, similar to a flu shot, could be an ideal solution here, because it can be done at home and dramatically lowers the cost. But today, subcutaneous solutions are incredibly complex, either chemically or mechanically, leaving $300 billion of biologic drugs completely uninjectable today. Allow me to demonstrate the challenge. Here I'm attempting to inject a typical biologic drug, but because of its viscosity, it's similar to honey, it's impossible to force it through the needle. At CoFlow, we've developed an entirely new type of injector, one that can inject drugs no matter how viscous they may be. Here you can see my hand is steady, and with a single hand, I'm rapidly injecting this drug. We do this by fundamentally surrounding that viscous drug with a second lower viscosity fluid. Over the course of 6 years of research and development at MIT, we've discovered a myriad of fluidic instabilities, and we've patented the fundamental geometries required to stabilize this flow. Our approach is entirely physical. There's no biological or chemical aspect here, allowing us to cruise through clinical trials at a faster rate than our competitors. We also only need to manufacture a single component, and it's mass manufacturable with existing techniques today. Experimentally, we've demonstrated a 200 times increase in injection speed, and with this, we've gained significant traction with major pharmaceutical companies, who have given us 6 drugs whose annual revenue totals to $18 billion. With each and every single one of these drugs, we've demonstrated between a 10 and 200 times increase in injection speed and full compatibility. Our partners are so excited about our solution, they're willing to pay just for an evaluation, and we have $180,000 in revenue today. We've adapted our platform technology to a multitude of form factors, allowing us to inject any formulation and any volume. In order to capitalize on the massive value in our $11 billion beachhead market, we aim to continue these collaborations, where we will provide our device to our pharmaceutical partners, and in return, we'll receive revenue in 3 streams: licensing fees, device sales, and a royalty on drug sales. This all fits within a standard model that these pharmaceutical companies are already accustomed to for an enabling technology. We have a strong pipeline of inbound interest. This is all inbound of pharmaceutical companies, device manufacturers, and academic partners that are ready to work with us on this challenge. We're a team of experienced entrepreneurs and all-star advisors ready to make biologic drugs more injectable. Thank you.
Can you talk about defensibility?
Absolutely. So we have discovered the fundamental ways to stabilize this device. Core annular flow as a technique has been known about for decades. People have tried to use it in the oil industry, for example, to transport over long ranges. However, there's multiple instabilities, and we've fundamentally patented the designs of that adapter, that blue piece that you can see there, that enable the stability of this flow that no one has done before. We have a family of 4 patents.
Is the IP in the device itself, and then how it interacts with sort of benign chemicals that you're adding into the solution, or?
Yes, exactly. The IP is in the geometry that enables the flow to be stable. And I'm glad you mentioned the second fluid. It doesn't add any complexity to this system because we can simply use the buffer solution of the drug. So essentially the exact same solution as the drug, but with the drug molecule removed. So we don't actually introduce any new materials whatsoever.
Cool, thank you.
And actually, there's opportunity to introduce a whole new type of injection where if you wanted to, you could introduce another chemical into that second fluid. And you could have, for example, 2 different chemicals that may not be stable together, but you can administer at the same time. So it opens up a lot of opportunities as well.
You had noted on one of your final slides that 3 drugs would bring you to $575 million of revenue.
That's correct. These biologics.
That's in a single year? That's
in a single year. So if we bring 3 drug device combinations to market for an average biologic drug, we will net $575 million in revenue per year. Each biologic drug has around $2 billion of revenue. The average biologic drug has about $2 billion of revenue every single year. These are life-changing drugs that have capabilities that no drug before has had to treat challenging diseases that are completely unsolved today.
And is the target market would be, as you were saying, some of these areas where it's more of a challenge to actually administer these drugs to the patients?
Exactly. So today the biologics market.
Net new market for them.
Yes. So today the biologics market is $500 billion. We've done a lot of market research to identify the most highly viscous drugs that are most in need of this technology. But once we become ubiquitous with those most highly viscous drugs, we can serve the entire market for subcutaneous injectability.
One quick question. Royalty sales feels great, but in my head, kind of improbable for a device. Like, do you have any comps? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Halozyme is the one that comes off the top of the mind. We've done a lot of research on this, and we've talked to a lot of pharma companies as well. And in their minds, when something is an enabling device, it can absolutely receive royalties, mid-single digits to even high single digits. For a lot of these pharmaceutical companies, they're in competitive spaces, and they know that patient experience is the #1 driver of market share. And so if you can bring a drug that brings affordability and brings patient experience and comfort at home administration, market share will follow, and they understand the value there.
Thank you so much, CoFlow.
Thank you.
Up next is Otomo. Otomo is an AI-native CRM platform that optimizes healthcare practice management, improving patient engagement and maximizing surgical center utilization. Give them a round.
People often say healthcare is broken, or that they feel like another number in the system. But what does that actually mean? And so I'll walk you through for Daniel. Daniel's just been referred for a routine colonoscopy with a great doctor. And again, it's a routine colonoscopy, so it should be simple. But it's anything but. I should also mention that Daniel is not extremely proficient when it comes to English, so he has a few barriers. But despite that, he's able to muscle through and get through scheduling, patient intake, paying his copay, and gets over to the burden of knowing how to do your colonoscopy. He's got to stop certain foods, he's got to learn which medication he has to stop, what prep he has to take, and ultimately shows up to the procedure after this, and he didn't do the prep correctly. This meant that he had to be moved 3 months down the line to get that colonoscopy postponed. And this is an experience that happens too often. And so despite having a great doctor, patients are left with a poor experience, which is seen here. And so this doesn't only affect that patient in the form of the experience, but it inhibits the actual clinic to reach more patients. In fact, over 10% of all patients are canceled or postponed due to undesirable prep or no-shows. And this results in a huge burden to the market of over $1.3 billion in unearned revenue. This is an opportunity for all of these patients to be diagnosed for critical conditions. And so just for a second, I want you to imagine, what if every clinic could utilize cutting-edge tech to seamlessly connect with their patients? That's where we come in. We're an AI-native concierge for seamless patient experiences. And this means that we engage in patients with a natural way. This doesn't mean downloading some new app. It means reaching out to them in a form of text messaging or voice AI calls that can speak to them in any language. And through this, we're able to navigate the patient from end to end, from that first moment that we receive the referral. And so we take this journey filled with anxiety and confusion from Daniel, and we can convert it into one filled with confidence and not knowing what's coming up next. And so not only do we transform this experience for the patients, but we make Dr. Fisher's ability to care for patients even better, where we can drive more revenue back to the clinic because they can actually reach more patients and generate over $700,000 in new revenue. In addition to that, we reduce significantly their administrative costs for all of these logistical hurdles that they see. And it is because of this that the market is actually pulling. We've been able to secure 7 ongoing programs, of which consist 3 hospital pilots and 4 paying customers to actually continue validating our value proposition. And we've also reached HIPAA compliance as seen by our third party that's monitoring our code. We're starting with ambulatory surgery centers, as this is a market where it's procedures, so unlike a normal doctor's visit, can't be double booked, and so every single slot matters. And from this, we'll scale on and reach more complex cases. We're an awesome team leading this charge forward. We've had the experience of scaling clinics to over 5,000 patients per month, and we're looking to make this dream a reality. We'll open up for questions now. Thank you so much.
Do you see the core customer being more the small clinics or like single doctor's offices, or more the big medical companies that you showed on the slide where there are multiple clinics?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So in order to get to the big ones, we need to have enterprise-grade software, integrations to all these types of EMRs. So I look at it as a step ladder. So we're starting off with some of the private practices, the smaller practices. The next step is we have a partner InterSystems for interoperability that'll help us reach bigger practices, potentially private equity roll-ups. And then when we have partnerships with these EMRs, we'll go after health systems to achieve an even higher market.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point that I was going to ask about, which is just how entrenched the EMRs and like Epic is in the healthcare system, which has, I know, a lot of like patient engagement modules. So are you imagining this as like a layer on top and over time replacing, or you just envision yourself as like a standalone patient engagement on top of a Epic?
Yeah, so the idea is that we're really tapping into the value that already exists in these EMRs. So we're going to live next to them or on top of them to be able to build out our own data sets on how to engage patients and stuff. But we don't want to step on the toes of Epic because, like, for example, if we try to sell into a hospital and we're replacing some of the stuff Epic does, they're not going to go for it because they already put in, all these millions of dollars to get that forward. So we're a complementing service for EMRs, and that's the way that we're looking at it for now.
How many software engineers do you have on the team today, and how are you going to recruit like super high quality product people?
Yeah, so the first question, or the first part of that is, I was the original engineer building out the product. We've since hired Steve. He was my boss actually at the last AI company I was working at, and he's the smartest guy I know. So he's leading the charge forward. So it's the two engineers, and we have we won the Posen Fellowship, so we have a computer science intern from MIT starting with us, and we're looking to build out a pipeline of really good engineers here at MIT. You know, we're in a really new world where we don't have to have that big of an expansive engineering team, so we want to be lean and mean to be able to obsess over the customers and develop in a very capital efficient way.
How are you planning to differentiate against the competition that's targeting health systems and practices?
Mm-hmm. That's a really good question. So right now, when you look at the competition, they're all going after like the sexy problems, just solving one point solution, for example, like an inbound call center, things like that. And where we're really looking to differentiate ourselves is by tying ourselves for that full end-to-end process. So we want to be a complement to this clinic. It's not Otomo calling, it's that clinic calling. We're an extension for that clinic, and we want to be partners with them for the long run. That's how we plan to differentiate ourselves with time.
If there are no more questions, thank you, Otomo.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up we have Cognify. Cognify uses AI to simulate user behavior and deliver real-time UX UI testing insights, helping product teams make faster, safer product decisions.
Imagine a world where product validation takes minutes, not months. I'm Morty, founder of Cognify. And as a prior head of product, I found user testing painful. Long testing cycles, unreliable data, and risk to user experience. But I wasn't alone. We spoke to over 50 product managers and came to one conclusion. UI UX validation today is time-consuming, resource-intensive, and very costly. Cognify uses AI to streamline user testing for product teams. We do this by using synthetic populations to predict user interactions with UI UX. So instead of running traditional A/B tests, we simulate user behavior at scale, where each synthetic user assumes behavioral characteristics of real people, interaction patterns, demographics, personas. And by simulating at scale, we're able to provide predictive insights into which UI UX most resonates with customer, solving the two biggest pain points within this particular market. Number one, helping our customers get to market as quickly as possible, and empowering product teams by giving them high quality data to make better decisions. We're tackling this opportunity. We think tackling this opportunity is a $1 billion ARR opportunity within the US alone, but we're not stopping there. Our beachhead is e-commerce, but we've had incredible interest across software, marketing, and media. We've secured our first LOI and are officially in technical integration with them and have 5 more in our pipeline. Cognify is uniquely positioned to capture this new market. We like to think of our market across 2 axes. On the x-axis, you have speed of insights, and the y-axis, quality of insights. Cognify is uniquely positioned at the top right, high speed, high quality insights. Traditional user testing tools in a very saturated market are typically low speed, medium quality insights. Low speed because it can take weeks to get test results, and medium quality because over 40% of test results may lead to inconclusive outcomes. Our go-to-market is very straightforward. In the early stages, we're going to tackle this market through direct sales, building up anchor clients and early engagements. We're then going to shift towards a product-led growth model, where our go-to-market engine will be powered by PLG for self-service customers. I'm a repeat founder with prior experience founding and scaling enterprise software companies to millions of dollars in ARR. My co-founder Sami is a math PhD with deep expertise in AI, also a repeat founder. And our third partner Ian brings a wealth of expertise in product analytics and design, having built Amplitude's user testing platform. So join us in shaping the future of product decision making. Validation in minutes, not months.
You put up that you'd get an ACV of $50K per customer per contract, yeah. And what are you estimating that companies are spending on solving for any testing in this area to date? Yeah.
That's a great question. So when you look at our peers, and this is publicly traded data, companies typically spend about 100 to 120,000 at the mid to large size on user testing platforms or user analytics platforms. Our differentiator here is we are not a full-fledged analytics platform. That is a very saturated market with tons of features. We are first and foremost a data platform. And I think that's really where some of these businesses struggle today. They are more reactive than proactive. So our pricing is slightly different there. It's not $100,000 in sort of average contract. It's about 20 to 50,000, and we operate on a sort of traditional enterprise SaaS model, so usage-based model.
Could you talk through the methodology you use to like yield different results faster than the other kind of user analytics platforms you were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So the status quo today, if you want to run an A/B test, is you'll typically set up a test. You'll go and build the actual variations of that test, so version A and version B. That might take a lot of time. It might take a lot of money, development hours, and then you finally launch it. Now, once you've launched it, you don't stop there. You wait up to 4 to 6 weeks to actually get those results. What we do is we use synthetic populations to predict how customers might interact with that test. So we will train an AI model, typically an LLM and a reinforcement learning model, on user interaction data. So how customers might have historically interacted with similar A/B tests to predict how they might interact with future ones.
How are you like bootstrapping to get to kind of critical data volume to actually do it in this sort of simulation way?
Sure. So our MVP has gotten us to about 60% directional accuracy, which means 60% of the tests we feed it give us directional accuracy based on historical data. For our customers, that's getting close to sufficient. They want about 80%. I think we're nearly there.
What prevents some of the big companies up there that you showed on your competitive analysis chart from building this themselves?
So 2 reasons. I think number 1, cannibalization, and number 2, inertia. I think if companies were to move into this particular field, they would be cannibalizing on their existing analytics platforms. Today, these companies are reactive rather than proactive. They're in the business of analyzing data, not producing data and then analyzing it. And I think for some of these larger businesses, they're billion-dollar companies, to pivot into a direction like this, I think would be particularly challenging for a large-scale product team. But we are nimble and we're hungry and we move very fast.
In your customer research phase, and were you able to validate that the budgets that today are allocated to actual testing data with human subjects, basically, can be replaced, and that budget can be reallocated to your platform? Or is it in addition to?
Yes, so absolutely. The core value proposition here is time saved. I think the customer is still confident investing and spending money on a technology like this as long as they can save those extra 4 to 6, 8 weeks, maybe even 12 weeks running those tests. So that's really our value proposition here. And I think customers are willing to pay for that. And in the long term, we see ourselves more as an integration partner with some of these analytics platforms where they can actually be powered by our data. And that's really what can differentiate their offering within their very saturated market.
Thank you, Cognify. Next up, we have EC Cubed. EC Cubed embeds nanocarbons into concrete to store energy like a supercapacitor, turning buildings into scalable, fire-safe energy storage solutions.
Welcome, everyone. Global energy demand is expected to rise 40% by 2050, driven by data centers and AI. However, huge of this could be drastically reduced because currently, without on-site energy storage system, data centers must triple their energy contracts to maintain their constant and reliable operation. That drives huge costs every single year and strains our energy grid. In the meantime, existing energy storage technologies meet only a fraction of projected demand due to their short lifespan, risky supply chain, and hazardous waste after disposal. But what if the data center itself, its foundations, walls, and surrounding infrastructure could store electrical energy? Well, now it can. Our team at MIT has developed and patented a concrete energy storage system. We modify regular concrete with nanocarbons to then create structural and energy storing concrete elements such as piles, columns, and beyond. Our technology tackles multiple issues faced by traditional systems. We use structural supercapacitor architecture to keep the energy storage for the lifetime of our structures. Second, we use globally abundant resources. Third, we use research, IP, and design to, with small changes at the concrete plants, deploy it at construction sites. And why now? Because over multiple years at MIT, we have boosted our energy density from 20 to more than 2,000 watt-hour per cubic meter in just this year. And to visualize how meaningful this number is let me tell you, just 10% of your concrete in your house can power and deliver energy for residential need. When we translate this technology to the data center, we can deliver 60 megawatt hour of energy. That saves 30 million annually and can get return investment in just 4 years. Our capital plan starts with finalizing the pilot project, licensing IP, and then move to deployment of non-structural elements. Then we work on regulations to move also to structural applications. We have a robust team to execute the plan. I'm a research scientist with background in climate tech. I'm joined by 2 PhD students with backgrounds in business and physics. We are backed by 2 MIT professors, inventors, with startup experience. We also got multiple awards in major competitions. Together, we have pushed this technology from an idea to multiple working prototypes. We have also gained international recognition through awards, media coverage, TV features, and engagement with government agencies. But data centers is just the beginning. After that, we want to move to critical infrastructure like hospitals and airports, and after that, we will finally deploy it at residential and commercial applications. So join us in a world where infrastructure doesn't just consume energy, it stores it.
Fascinating project with the ability to throw concrete up that can last for 50 years. It sounds like a long time, but it also, to me, like what happens at the end of the 50 years and you've got a whole building that no longer can store what was quite a lot of capacity for the given area. Where do you find the new capacity? How do you replace that? That's a great question.
So first, why it can last so long? Because you're not using chemical reactions like batteries, but supercapacitor, no atomic intercalation. Second, after disposal, it's the same what we do currently with concrete. We could work on our material and reuse it in the later stage as recycled aggregate for the next. Other than that, if it stays in our structure, it will still serve as that load-bearing material.
Right, but the actual power that was being stored there cannot be stored after 50 years. It loses its ability to store the power, correct?
Obviously, but first of all, this is a lower bound, right? 50 years is a lower bound. That could go up to 100 years or something.
It could go, okay.
Yeah, and also, like a data center is going to last 50 years, but then get renovation. You could like leverage, for example, the surrounding infrastructure, which, for example, the parking site that is going to be renovated every 5 years, right? To add power, for example.
Okay.
How should we think about the capacity of storage versus some of the other kind of battery solutions that I know a lot of data centers are installing in their parking lots?
That's a very good point. And I think what the dilemma that we have here is not only storage, but really storage and generation. And so the 3 incumbents for the specific application that we want to solve, which is energy fluctuations, are lithium-ion batteries, hydrogen on-site, and gas peaker turbines. If we discuss about lithium-ion batteries themselves, they have several problems. For example, the fact that they have to be disposed every 3 to 10 years. And second, the fact that they have a lot of problem in terms of supply chain, right? The lithium is procured, for example, in China, and the cobalt in DRC, right? Now, if you think even beyond, because the incumbent is not only batteries, but for example, gas peaker turbines, procurement delays, at least 4 years for data centers, and on top of that, increased regulatory pressure. Finally, in terms of hydrogen plants, the problem that you have is twofold. First of all, a lot of capex, so that your LCOE, levelized cost of energy, is uncompetitive. And beyond that, the claims that you're making in terms of sustainability is tied to the type of hydrogen that you're producing, that is not obviously green, but has to be tied to the mix of the grid. So that's also a problem.
Who is the first customer for your licensing phase and for the first commercial phase?
Great question. Yeah. So we wouldn't be looking into licensing at first, kind of as with many other novel construction materials, the best way to push that forward is to sort of first look at doing a few pilot projects, sort of testing that use case and de-risking it sort of for future customers. And so that's sort of the path that we'll try to take as well. And in the meantime, also look through the regulatory pathways to make sure that we can establish the right codes in terms of construction standards and energy storage standards in order to make sure that we can then push forward to actual licensing once those specs emerge and there's established cases for people to draw on.
Thank you, EC Cubed. All right, next up we have Kira. Kira uses patented adaptive electrodialysis technology to turn oil and gas wastewater into clean water at remote sites.
Great, thanks so much. Hey folks, my name is John Bissett. I'm a fifth-year PhD here at MIT, and I'll be telling you about how we're doing adaptive desalination to solve a $20 billion problem in the oil and gas industry. So our team's worked on this sort of issue before. We've deployed energy assets in the oil and gas fields in the past, and we've built small companies up to millions of dollars in ARR. And we have a history of deploying these decentralized desalination systems all over the world. Areas from India, the Middle East, all the way to the American Southwest where we're targeting now. So the issue we're looking into is with an oil and gas, inland oil and gas. So 40% of the U.S.'s oil actually comes from this small area in the Permian Basin in West Texas. And for every single barrel of oil, there's up to 10 barrels of highly saline produced wastewater. Now currently what folks do is they transport this via a bunch of different trucks and aggregate in different areas, and they aggregate it and inject it into the ground. But the issue with that is that there's only so much space in the ground, and this pore space is filling up, causing seismicity, causing a lack of permitting, and causing these production wells to be shut down. So what we can do to mitigate this is desalinate this water. We can reduce the amount of waste that's being produced while also producing clean water for the local regions, which are often quite arid. But the issues with current technologies is that they can't operate in these remote environments that lack power, and the salinity is often 3 times that of seawater, which is that of which traditional desalination is used for. If we look at a traditional, even the smallest well, there's up to $1,000 per day in operational costs. What we can do is we can go in, we can reduce the amount of waste produced by 50% or more, saving over $180K per year on this small well, while still producing useful, clean water for local processes. We use this patented technology called adaptive electrodialysis reversal, where what we're doing is we can operate at variable salinities that are in these oil and gas fields, while also operating with variable power sources, such as renewable energy, and for which we've received several awards, including the International Desalination Association Innovation Award. And so this is the regime in which we operate. Traditional technology can't operate at this high salinity, which is 3 times that of seawater. Thermal desalination technologies can do it, but they're often an order of magnitude higher in energetic costs, which leads to them being much higher in terms of cost. They have to build these large centralized plants, and they can't operate in these decentralized regions. So we're initially going after these remote well sites where there's significant costs in transportation and disposal. We'll expand to other areas of the United States in terms of produced water, and we'll also look into other opportunities in other verticals within desalination in ultra-pure water and high concentration water, leveraging other electrochemical technology. So currently we're building a 20-foot containerized pilot which we'll deploy in New Mexico this summer. And we eventually are working with some other partners, including some folks in Texas, to build pilots over the next few years to help validate our technology and increase our TRL in these oil and gas markets. And we aim to use MIT 100K to help catalyze growth and really disrupt and innovate in this desalination, in the global desalination market. So thank you very much for your time.
Sorry, there's a company I talked to several years ago that is doing something similar. Is one of the products of the process chlorine?
For this one, not necessarily. I mean, there could be chlorine gas byproduct. And sometimes there's even folks looking into this to produce hydrogen and chlorine as an additional value add. But that's not necessarily our initial target.
No, okay.
Yeah.
How do you guys manage like the variability of the energy inputs, like solar, wind? I don't know what else you guys are focused on, but to maintain kind of performance. And then I assume the customers also want specific kind of throughput of this. So just thinking through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's variable. So to manage the variable energy, we have a wide bandwidth of power that we can operate with. So traditional RO technology, traditional desalination technology, they can really only operate at a finite power bandwidth. What we've done and what we've innovated on is expanding that bandwidth orders of magnitude. so that we're able to follow, for instance, solar curves directly without the need for energy storage, which often costs 50% of the capital cost of these projects, which you can sort of see here. Typical technologies only use portions of this band of this available energy, for instance, with a solar application, and we're able to use all of that.
Yeah, with our Nature publication, we demonstrated a 94% recovery of the solar profile over the course of a day.
Could you talk about the business model?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go back to that. So what we're aiming to do initially to help de-risk the technology is we're aiming to first work with folks to deploy initial pilots where we would own and operate the pilots, and we would simply lease the system and sell a price per barrel, which is what a lot of other folks in the industry are doing currently in thermal, the other current thermal incumbents are doing. But right now, it's very segmented. There's no single player. There's a lot of different small players trying a bunch of different technologies, but no one's really figured out, and no one's really, no oil and gas company is really attached or latched onto a single company yet.
What are they paying per barrel to get rid of the waste?
Yeah, so it's anywhere as low as $1 all the way up to $10 per barrel in the most remote regions.
Okay, so that you're essentially saying we're going to replace that.
Exactly.
As your,
yeah.
as your
we would
pricing
maybe
model.
we would replace it or take a margin of it. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Kira.
Sweet, thank you guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Next up, we have Maywood Capital. Maywood automates the investment banking workflow, helping bankers process M&A deal flow faster and more efficiently while avoiding burnout.
An investment banking partner we work with only conducts 10 deals a year, but they turn away 20 to 30. Why? They're a 20-person team that is capacity constrained, but they're flooded with opportunities as a new wave of business owners seek to sell. Sadly, tasks such as crafting a confidential information memorandum can take them a couple of months, delaying deal timelines. Identifying and compiling a comprehensive list of potential buyers can be challenging, often leading to missing key prospects. Handling due diligence can become overwhelming, leading to potential oversight and inefficiencies. As 12 million privately held businesses worth over $10 trillion are set to change hands in the coming decade, these problems will only further be exacerbated. Enter Maywood, a one-stop shop for investment banking automation solutions. From client pitching to pre-marketing materials to buyer identification and document due diligence, Maywood transforms raw data into fully customizable, high-quality deal materials in a fraction of the time. Going back to our client, at each step of the M&A process, we are able to save them significant time. But more importantly, we open an entirely new universe to them. Our clients are able to take on those 20 to 30 deals they turn away each year, adding a potential $100 to $200 million directly to their revenue base. Our solutions include a variety of products across the deal phase. Our products allow us to accelerate deal preparation, do a better job at identifying key buyers, and enhance accuracy. Our clients have said our products look and present information better than their original materials. Unlike pinpoint solutions, which isolate specific tasks, Maywood offers a comprehensive platform tailored directly to the lower middle market, a segment often overlooked by larger institutions. To date, Maywood has been instrumental in transactions totaling over $400 million in deal value, and we are currently collaborating with 5 paying beta stage clients. As we look forward, we are prepared to scale in the coming months, onboarding hopefully 20 clients in the next few months. Our business model encompasses both recurring and project-based revenue streams, positioning us perfectly for sustainable growth. Our team combines a deep well of deal experience and technical expertise, enabling us to understand the intricacies of the deal process and deliver effective solutions. So join us in transforming the M&A markets. Thank you.
I'm sure you're aware of how many competitors you have in this space. How do you differentiate yourself from a few of the kind of high flyers?
Yeah, so I think there's 3 big differentiators versus us and our competitors. The first one is kind of our go-to-market strategy. We are specifically targeting these lower middle market investment banks, while the primary assortment of our competitors are trying to target those larger institutions. Our second big differentiator is that we are an end-to-end workflow automation. And this is a real important factor because at each step of the deal phase, it involves understanding the entire deal process. And because we're able to generate solutions across that whole deal process, our products flow better and are easier for investment bankers to use. And our third big key differentiator is the fact that we've already started working with a lot of clients and have already started building a repository of private data that allow our models to be trained faster and better.
In terms of pricing, similar, different, higher, lower?
In terms of pricing, we are a bit higher than the majority of our competitors because they are tools for larger institutions rather than full generation. So we're able to replace an analyst, while they are hoping to help an analyst.
And how many sort of like humans do you have in the loop today delivering the value to your end clients?
So right now we have 0 humans in the loop. So to handle kind of quality, which I think is what you're getting at, to handle quality, we've built out a robust QA workflow, but all along with each of our products, we deliver what we call the audit, which is basically a mapping of all of the information on our product back to its original source, which makes quality checking quite quick for the investment banks.
In the lower middle market, there's not as much preparation necessarily from the companies that you're talking about. And so if you don't have the inputs, what is being done to help fill the gaps, I guess? Is if you have a full set of materials, when you get a full laundry list that is a request that goes through, what comes out the other end is based on a full set of materials. But if you don't have that full set, where do you go?
Yeah, so there are kind of 2 kind of parts to that within our workflow. The first is our robust research. So once a deal comes in, even if it's limited information, our software will go through and research all of the major databases. We're going to research the entire market so our program can get a better understanding of the market, but also we can start filling in the gaps. The second thing is during our kind of due diligence documentation phase, we will generate a list of kind of missing information that is highly likely a client will have, and then that can be sent back to the investment banker, who then has a list of all of the things that are missing that they can ask for their clients, versus having an analyst go through every single document, which are hundreds of them, and trying to find a checklist of all the missing information.
Do lower middle market banks really care about labor efficiency?
Yeah, so what the lower middle market banks are really caring about is kind of the volume and the quality of their deals. So they're really trying to just make sure they expand their revenue base, and that's what we kind of provide, because even if they have more labor, they can't have too many hands on each SIM, or else it just doesn't look like a cohesive document. So there's really this constraint on, we can't just speed up deals by hiring more analysts. And so that's kind of what May would help solve.
You're just doing the SIM, or are you doing other materials as well?
So currently, we are doing both SIMs, buyers lists, teasers, management presentations, and pitch decks for the banks, and we've started our due diligence documentation. But going forward, we hope to kind of expand this due diligence phase and start touching up on some of the other parts of the investment banking process.
But no FP&A modeling, no valuation exercises?
So we do some financial modeling, such as EBITDA adjustments and LBOs, but right now we don't do complex financial modelings, but that's also okay because in the lower middle market, the deals are not very complex and you don't really need more than a DCF and EBITDA adjustments.
Thank you. All right, last but not least, we have Aorta Scope. Aorta Scope combines AI and ultrasound to provide augmented reality guidance for vascular surgery, reducing reliance on harmful X-ray imaging.
Hi everyone, we're Aorta Scope, and our team focuses on developing tools to help surgeons see better, specifically in the aorta, which is the largest blood vessel in the body. So an aortic aneurysm is a potentially fatal condition where the aorta swells in diameter. This condition affects 35 million people globally, and costs the US healthcare system $4.7 billion. The preferred method of treatment is endovascular repair. This is a keyhole surgery where a large implant is fed into the vessel and deployed inside the aneurysm to reduce the risk of burst. This procedure is challenging though, given limitations in current imaging. X-ray gives you a 2D snapshot of the torso, even though surgeons are trying to align a graft in 3D space, so a lot of guesswork is used. So poor positioning of these implants in 3D leads to implant leakages in 30% of cases. And those 30% of cases require follow-ups that can cost hospitals up to $1 billion annually. So to address these shortcomings, our team has developed a platform for real-time 3D implant alignment called Aortascope. Aortascope integrates two existing technologies, intravascular ultrasound, which provides 2D cross-sectional views of a vessel, and fiber optic shape sensing, which gives you the 3D position of the surgical tool. So using a proprietary data fusion process that I developed during my PhD, we've been able to show that we can align implants more accurately using an augmented reality visualization based on ultrasound and fiber optic. So this is something that previously wouldn't be possible using two-dimensional X-ray alone. So through user testing, we've been able to compare Aortascope to X-ray in both benchtop and preclinical animal models. And we've been able to demonstrate stakeholder value across a range of markets. So for example, hospitals, they benefit from reduced costs of follow-up procedures. Surgeons, they benefit from reduced exposure to ionizing radiation. And patients benefit from receiving a gold standard of healthcare. So our TAM is 1.1 million patients with aortic aneurysms in the US. So we'll target 70,000 of those initially who have the most complex anatomies and they're at greatest risk of surgical complications. To generate revenue, we'll look at both the upfront cost of the Aortascope mapping system and recurring revenue will come from single-use disposable catheters. So we're absolutely the team to do this. I have 6 years of industry and academic experience in computer-assisted surgery. Brian is a practicing vascular surgeon, so he can offer continuous user feedback. And Diego has 4 years of experience in design for manufacturing surgery. We also have advisors that span both the academic and clinical realm, and key opinion leaders that will help us drive a widespread adoption of our program. So if you share a vision of safer, more streamlined vascular surgery, I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
How do you push health plans to get health systems to adopt this? Because they're probably getting quite a bit of revenue from follow-up surgeries.
It's a great point. And so EVARs in specific are part of what's a global payment period. So if you have a complication within 30 days, it's on you. And so you have to bring someone back and do an additional procedure. It's out of your pocket and you lose money on those patients. A lot of the complications are outside of 30 days. So in the current fee-for-service model, they are making money. But with this technology and the 3D visualization and actual endovascular tracking, procedures are going to be much, much, much faster. Right now, we're having to access side vessels and place these stents in 2 dimensions and have to figure out in our head, how that third dimension aligns, and it can take hours. And so in our benchtop model so far, it shows that using this endovascular technology, being able to navigate in 3 dimensions real time, save a ton of time of procedural time, which is huge ROI for hospitals being able to do more procedures, save operative time, which is, the cardiovascular OR is the most expensive place in the hospital.
Estimation of time savings, percentage-wise?
It's preliminary. We have to do the full testing. So, we have ex vivo models. Tom's done an amazing job of making these phantom aortas. We can recreate patient-specific complex anatomy. And they'll have all the cardiovascular fellows come through and have standard fluoroscopy compared to the 3D. Doing just a preliminary testing could save 50% of time. The more complex ones, maybe more. I mean, sometimes we take a patient to the OR and we're there for 6-7 hours and we can never actually access the vessels. So this could be a real game changer for patient care and for bottom line hospitals.
What's the time and dollar investment to get from where you are now with the animal testing to approval to use on humans?
Sure. So we believe this should be a complex 510K pathway approval. It's based off of IVUS technology and EM tracking or optical sensing that's already approved, and then it's combining it and using Tom's math that I don't understand 10% of it to be able to do it and make it useful to the clinician in real time. And so with the 100K, we'll be able to complete our ex vivo testing, our initial acute animal studies, and prove that kind of time savings. And then we're already talking with strategic partners who are very, very, very interested. This is a huge space. Philips, the big players, Cook, Terumo. They're all very interested to make their stent the one that's more attractive because it's faster, easier, safer. Surgeons, we hate putting these in with radiation. It's bad for the surgeon, it's bad for the patient, and this would eliminate radiation.
Do you anticipate that being the path for the business as well, where modest investment, modest time put in, and then finding the right partner to scoop you guys up?
Yeah, I think we've been thinking about whether strategic acquisition makes the most sense. And really we're sort of targeting, pre-market notification for an FDA application. Particularly if we're able to show that our device is substantially equivalent to existing devices on the market. And we think that's pretty probable given we're integrating existing technologies like intravascular ultrasound and position tracking. Really like kind of that quicker path to strategic acquisition.
And how much more do you estimate you'll need to raise beyond the 100K to get yourselves into that position?
Depends on the strategic partnership and what they really want. We anticipate anywhere from another 500 to $1 million probably, and I think we'll be able to show enough that one of these big players is going to be very intrigued. Yeah, there's a lot of precedence in the space, acquisitions in the, before human studies, anywhere from 300 million to Volcano itself, which is one of the big IVUS companies, sold for $1 billion to Philips. They're a little further along, but it's getting earlier and earlier as it's now 510K rather than having to go through the whole approval process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's a wrap for all our pitches tonight. A huge round of applause again for all of our teams for coming out here and pitching to us and sharing us with their ideas.